This morning, the Queen's extraordinary statement. She's given her blessing for Harry and Meghan's new life, but is there a clue they will lose their titles? Found alive, a Victorian man rescued after nearly a month in a croc-infested Queensland rainforest, how he survived. And hazardous smoke, a thick haze blankets Melbourne, triggering major health warnings.
This is 7 News with Angela Cox.
Good morning. In a rare move, the Queen has issued a personal statement after holding unprecedented crisis talks about Harry and Meghan's future. She's given the couple her blessing, but there may be a clue in the carefully worded statement that they'll be forced to give up their royal titles if they go it alone. Europe correspondent Sarah Greenhalgh has more from Sandringham Estate.
Well, today's statement from the Queen couldn't be more different from that terse one-line statement she released last week in the immediate aftermath of Harry and Meghan's shock resignation. She says discussions at the Sandringham summit were constructive, going on to say, "My family and I are entirely supportive of Harry and Meghan's desire to create a new life as a young family. Although we would have preferred them to remain full-time working members of the royal family, we respect and understand their wish to live a more independent life as a family while remaining a valued part of my family." Harry and Meghan have made clear they do not want to be reliant on public funds in their new lives. It has therefore been agreed there will be a period of transition in which the Sussexes will spend time in Canada and the UK. "These are complex matters for my family to resolve and there is some more work to be done. I've asked for final decisions to be reached in the coming days." There is so much to take away from this statement. Firstly, Her Majesty mentioning the word family 8 times in stark contrast to how Harry and Meghan described the family as an institution in their statement last week. The other significant thing is that she calls Harry and Meghan by their first names. She does not refer to them as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Some are saying perhaps that's an indication they are willing to give up their royal titles.
Meghan Markle is not quite what she seems, that she's actually somebody who I think is a pretty ruthless social climber. What makes it more serious now is that having basically got rid of her own family, she now appears to be trying to get rid of Harry from his family.
The senior members of the royal family who attended this crisis meeting left Sandringham in separate cars, but earlier in the day, Prince William and Harry were forced to come together as brothers and release a statement after a newspaper article was published here in the UK in The Times. It reported that the reason Harry and Meghan are breaking away from the royal family is due to William's bullying and the fact that he had, quote, been insufficiently welcoming of Meghan from the very start. The brothers released this statement saying despite clear denials, a false story ran in a UK newspaper today speculating about the relationship between the Duke of Sussex and the Duke of Cambridge. For brothers who care so deeply about the issues surrounding mental health, the use of inflammatory language in this way is offensive and potentially harmful. There are clear divisions in the royal family, but there is also clear evidence they are doing their best to work through things.
In breaking news, a desperate search is underway for a man missing in the ocean off central Queensland. The man, aged in his 60s, was camping with his brother on an island off Yeppoon when their boat slipped its mooring during the night. He disappeared after the pair swam out to retrieve the vessel. The brother was taken to hospital. An air and sea search is ongoing. A Victorian man has survived for almost a month in crocodile-infested region of far north Queensland. Malal Nemich was last seen at river crossing in the Daintree rainforest just before Christmas. But yesterday afternoon he was found safe and well at Creb Track. Police were amazed at the 25-year-old's condition. He survived by eating wild berries.
Well, this has got to be the good news story of the day. 29-year-old Milan Lemick has spent 22 days lost in the Daintree, surviving on berries and avoiding crocodiles. He was found late yesterday afternoon after a motorcyclist came across him on the Creb Track. That is a notorious four-wheel drive track that is currently closed due to water levels. They managed to find him about 10 k's into that track just before it got dark. Just an incredible tale of survival. Mr. Lemick went missing on the 22nd of December. His ute became bogged. volunteers from Victoria. A Good Samaritan came to help him. He went to get a tractor, and during the time that he was gone, the 20-odd minutes that he was gone to get that tractor, Mr Lemick simply vanished. At first, police thought that he'd been taken by a crocodile. Then they thought he may have just gone missing of his own accord and didn't want to be found. But it turns out he's now told police he wandered off from his ute and simply got lost in the bush. He spent all of that time surviving. His parents flew from Victoria to far north Queensland to make a plea for him to return. They would no doubt be overjoyed today. He is now in the Cairns Base Hospital. He's suffered a lot of weight loss during this whole ordeal. He's got lots of scratches and bruises and insect bites, but otherwise he's said to be in a stable condition.
Thick smoke is choking Melbourne, triggering health warnings and casting doubt over today's Australian Open tennis qualifiers. Live to reporter Melina Saris. Melina, the air quality has plummeted to hazardous levels.
Good morning. It has, and it's just been confirmed that overnight Melbourne had the worst air quality in the world. Not a title you want to have. It dipped to hazardous around midnight and stayed there until the early hours of the morning. It is still very smoky out here today, and the air quality is now listed as very poor. Overnight, fire crews were called out to around 200 false alarms. They had smoke alarms being set off throughout the night. There has also been a road weather warning for drivers. Visibility has been reduced to less than 900 metres in some areas around the city. There have been a number of health warnings out. People with breathing difficulties are being told to stay indoors today. It is not safe for them to be outdoors, but even people without pre-existing medical conditions, they could still be suffering symptoms, and those symptoms include coughing, wheezing and shortness of breath. In relation to the tennis tournaments in Melbourne today, there was doubt over whether the Kooyong Classic would go ahead this afternoon, but I have been told that the players have just agreed to take to the court at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Maria Sharapova is one of the first players up there, and in relation to the Australian Open, practice sessions were cancelled this morning, but qualifying was delayed. That didn't stop a number of people from getting out and exercising this morning.
I think overnight for Melbourne it did reach the worst in the world. Those conditions overnight are obviously when there are cooler temperatures and the particulate matter can settle very low to the ground. It will improve through the course of today, I'm told by the Chief Environmental Scientist.
Well, it's very concerning, and I'm just waiting for a really big wind to come through and hopefully blow it all away. It's not so easy to breathe because you can feel it.
The smoke haze will hang around for the rest of today and tomorrow. It should finally move on when we have a wind change and some possible storms later on Wednesday, Ange.
OK, thanks so much, Melina. Firefighters across the country are hoping the forecast for heavy rain proves accurate as they work to contain the bushfire crisis. Up to 100 millimetres are tipped to fall across the east coast, including the fire grounds over the next week. There are still more than 100 fires burning across New South Wales. Inland areas are set for a downpour too, but it won't be drought-breaking. A Hercules jet loaded with supplies and equipment is on its way to help bushfire-affected towns in New South Wales and Victoria. Thousands of Defence Force personnel are assisting in the operation to get communities back on their feet as soon as possible. More from Andrew Denny.
Well, this Mercy mission is all part of the Australian Defence Force's Operation Bushfire Assist. It involves more than 5,000 full-time and reservist personnel working around the clock to deliver critical supplies and equipment to areas across the country that have been hardest hit by the fires. Today, this Hercules aircraft will be providing relief into the areas of Merimbula in New South Wales and East Gippsland in Victoria. It's one of scores of aircraft that have been conducting relief operations since the military was called in. They've been not only delivering supplies but also shifting heavy equipment to help put in fire breaks and providing ground troops to help get roads reopened and infrastructure rebuilt.
We're using those armoured vehicles to provide the safety, and we're checking routes before we escort people through. So it's a very deliberate, slow process, but it is allowing people to get out and get home, and obviously people need to get on with their lives in all aspects.
Now, Defence Force leaders say flights like these will continue until major roads can be reopened, trucks allowed in, and get these areas back on their feet.
The Prime Minister has managed to convince the US to downgrade its travel warning to Australia. American tourists were being told to exercise caution because of the bushfires. Olivia Leeming reports from Canberra.
Limiting the impact of the bushfires on Australia's tourism industry remains one of the government's many challenges, but it's hopeful this revised travel advice from the US can help. After the United States warned Americans to postpone visiting Australia until after the bushfire season, it's since returned its Level 2 travel warning back to Level 1, but urging tourists to take increased caution in fire and smoke-affected parts of New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT. It's after the Prime Minister personally reached out to the United States to lobby for the change. Whether it increases tourism is uncertain, given the widespread coverage of the bushfires in the US and elsewhere overseas, and small businesses are feeling the effects. Today, the Prime Minister will hear their concerns, holding an industry roundtable to work out how to help more than 100,000 small businesses impacted by the fires get back on their feet.
What money is going to be available, when it's going to be available. We're looking at to look at insurance to make sure that what's happening in the insurance sector makes sense.
They're calling for interest-free loans and real experts on the ground to work directly with service stations, supermarkets and other businesses. The government is likely to use the feedback it receives this afternoon to finalise the next round of support this week.
Still to come in 7's Morning News, the latest movements in the share market, plus Westpac pledges support for bushfire victims, the bank's generous offer for affected customers. The Oscar nominations are in. Margot Robbie shines, but some of our biggest names miss out. That's next. Westpac has offered a year's worth of mortgage repayments for its bushfire-affected customers. The bank will cover repayments of up to $1,200 per month. It's also offering interest-free emergency loans of up to $2,000. In a separate offer, Westpac has promised no foreclosures for any farming businesses in affected areas for 3 years. And checking the financial markets, the ASX is trading up 56 points. The Australian dollar is buying 69 US cents, 76 Japanese yen and $1 for New Zealand. Iranian security forces have denied opening fire on protesters who took to the streets over the government's downing of a passenger plane. Iran has admitted it shot down a Ukrainian jet, killing all 176 people on board after days of denials. Protesters say several people were wounded when police fired live ammunition to disperse crowds in Tehran. After initially blaming a technical failure, Iranian authorities now admit to shooting the plane down with anti-aircraft missiles. Authorities in the Philippines are calling for the total evacuation of nearly 500,000 people as a volcano threatens to explode. The Taal volcano began spewing ash for the first time since 1977. Thousands of people have already fled their homes, but there are warnings a huge eruption is imminent. The volcanic activity has been so intense it's created its own weather system with bolts of lightning illuminating the ash column. Margot Robbie will carry Australia's hopes at the Academy Awards after picking up her second nomination. But the news wasn't so good for some of our other big names. Paul Caddick has more from Hollywood.
Good morning. It is the second Oscar nomination for the 29-year-old, and Margot Robbie is the only Australian up for an acting award when the Oscars are handed out here at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood in a few weeks. And she's got some pretty tough competition in the Best Supporting Actress category. She's up against Kathy Bates, Laura Dern, who won the Golden Globe for her role in Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson in Jojo Rabbit, and Florence Pugh from Little Women. In the Best Actress category, Margot's co-star Charlize Theron for Bombshell, Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, Scarlett Johansson for Marriage Story. It's the first time an actor has had a double nomination in the one Oscars in 12 years. Saoirse Ronan for Little Women and Golden Globe winner Renee Zellweger for Judy. In the Best Actor category, no surprises, Joaquin Phoenix, the Golden Globe Award winner for Joker, is facing off against Antonio Banderas, Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story and Jonathan Pryce for The Two two popes. Joaquin Phoenix's movie Joker is leading the number of nominations, 11 Oscars it is up for. One of those is Best Picture. It's up against Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which has 10 total Oscar nominations. Also The Irishman, the Korean film Parasite, 1917, which also has 10 Oscar nominations, Marriage Story, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, and Ford versus Ferrari. The 92nd Academy Awards will be handed out here at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood on February 10th, and it'll all be right here on 7.
Next in 7 News Sport with Matt Carmichael, including health concerns for the tennis stars ahead of the Australian Open. Also back to work for Latrell Mitchell as the NRL star joins his new teammates.
Good morning. Rain is threatening today's Big Bash debut of Brisbane Heat's prized recruit, AB de Villiers. It was an awkward start for new national selector George Bailey in Hobart last night.
Do you like cricket?
Sometimes like the boys.
Yeah. It's been lovely chatting to you. Have a lovely evening. Onwards and upwards from here, lads.
Well, things didn't improve from there for the Hobart Hurricanes. Josh Inglis hit 73 in the Perth Scorchers, 7 for 175. And Jai Richardson continued his comeback from shoulder surgery with 4 for 19 as Hobart were bowled out for 98, their lowest ever score. Australian Open officials are closely monitoring Melbourne's air quality. Practice was postponed by the smoke haze this morning ahead of a big day of qualifying and the start of the Kooyong Classic. Ash Barty begins her campaign at the Adelaide International in a jovial mood.
It's Ash Barty. Who's this? He left his phone on during a press conference. She hung up on me.
The caller was Carlton AFLW captain Karen Harrington, who was too starstruck to answer. Aussies Alya Tomljanovic and James Duckworth won their first matches after Alex de Minaur withdrew with injury. Latrell Mitchell has gone straight to work with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Retired legends Greg Inglis and Sam Burgess were at Redfern this morning, but Russell Crowe called Mitchell's signing the most significant in club history. The 22-year-old dual premiership winner has 8 weeks to work on his switch to fullback after a highly publicised and drawn-out switch from the Roosters.
I know my mum, she's actually my best friend, and I guess just for her to be upset about everything that's going on about me and my career, that's the hardest part. That was about all this stuff.
The Rabbitohs will now focus on taking Jai Arrow from the Titans a year early. Carlton veteran Mark Murphy has been cleared of major damage after rolling his ankle at training. The 32-year-old was rushed for scans after being carted from Princes Park on a motorised stretcher. At St Kilda, Dylan Robertson is hopeful of making an AFL comeback after a year out with a heart condition.
We really missed him last year across half-back, and yeah, I'm just so excited for him, and hopefully he can get to round 1.
And Carlton AFLW player Chloe Dalton will make the switch back to rugby sevens after their season in time for the Tokyo Olympics. Dalton played a key role in Australia's gold medal win at the Rio Games in 2016. And it will be a very different Olympics for Sally Pearson this year. The hurdles gold medalist and her husband Kieran have announced they're expecting their first child, who's due to arrive in July, just before the start of the Tokyo Games. Congratulations to Sally and Kieran. Hopefully a very fast baby to follow in the future.
Yeah, indeed. OK, cheers. Thanks, Maddie. Next in 7's Morning News, the national weather forecast with David Brown. A costly mistake has been caught on camera as a man dropped a $250 bottle of champagne. The young man lost his grip as he uncorked the 3-litre bottle of Mumm at a house party. Others tried desperately to rescue the champagne but failed spectacularly as it shattered on the floor. That is hard to watch. Let's get a check now of the weather forecast with David Brown. How's it looking, Brownie?
Yeah, nasty fall, wasn't it, Ange? Look, good morning. It's a beautiful day around the country today, but tomorrow, yes, the rains start over parts of eastern Australia, lasting into the weekend and early next week. Our model paints the following. You'll notice dark green areas unfolding. That represents 25 to 50 millimetres within the next 7 days. A lot more is expected in the blue regions. It's not drought-breaking rain, but it's a start, and hopefully there will be enough to knock out the remaining fires. Big soaking storms will play a part in driving these totals, especially through New South Wales. Let's go to the weather wall now. We're popping into Brisbane. Unsettled conditions today. A few showers are on the way. Might see a storm this afternoon around a top of 28 degrees. For Sydney, well, lots of sunshine and a comfortable high of 27. As we pop into Melbourne, smoke is a big problem for the southern capital, but I've got some good news. There is a change on the way that will flush most of this away. 29 degrees today. As we pop into Perth, sunny and a forecast top of 36 degrees. Tropical cyclone Claudia, which is on the edge of your screen, is moving further out to sea. This trough is expected to produce some showers and thunderstorms over the southeast corner of Queensland today and again tomorrow. As we go to the forecast, this is the meandering trough we're keeping an eye on. Lots of moisture starting to feed into it thanks to the monsoon. That's what's going to bring extensive areas of rain and thunderstorms for several days. But tomorrow, thundery change pushing into Melbourne late in the day. Hopefully, it'll clear that air. 31 degrees. That's latest weather. More at 4, Ange.
OK, thanks so much, Brownie. And that is 7 News to now. Our next bulletin is at 4 o'clock. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. I'm Angela Cox. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great day.